Shanta Thomas, and I'm going to talk to you about our tax resolution process. Now, our tax resolution process has 3 phases. Each of these phases is unique, but also super important to the longevity of not only putting something in place for you, but making sure that you never have to come back here and visit this again. So let's talk about our phases. Phase 1 is designed to help us understand what you see versus what the IRS sees and make sure the 2 things are aligned. So what we do in this phase is we go to the IRS, we contact them, we ask for a hold on your account, which means during that time, they cannot move forward with anything that they're trying to do in your account. That includes liens, levies, all those things. We also make sure during that process, we get any liens or levies halted for 30 days. In addition to that, we pull your transcripts and we call the IRS during all of this to make sure that what they're seeing is what you see. And if not, we kind of come back to you and say, hey, this is what they're seeing and this is what we're going to need to do to resolve this matter. At the end of phase 1, we have a meeting with you, typically about an hour. We go over everything that we've learned and we outline what the steps would be in order to resolve this matter once and for all. We also will outline what the price will be to resolve this matter once and for all. Next, we have phase 2 of our process. Phase 2 is where we do all of our cleanup. So depending on what you're coming to us for, you might have outstanding tax returns that need to be filed. You might need to file an amendment. You might have bookkeeping that needs to be done, payroll that has to be done. There could be a lot of cleanup. Typically, that's what we find is there is different cleanup that has to be done, but it looks different by client. So we outline in phase 1 what all will be needed to clean all these things up in phase 2. And that's what we do in phase 2. We clean everything up. We'll be working with you to make sure that whatever we need, all the information that we need from you in order to do a full cleanup will be done. When we get done, there'll be no more cleanup to do. You'll be set going forward. Last is our phase 3. Phase 3 is designed to put you into some sort of agreement with the IRS. Now, working with clients in phase 2, we have found that sometimes clients who owed a lot of money, once we do all of our cleanup, owe nothing. And we found this more than once. Let me give you 2 examples. Once we had a client who owed over $100,000 to the IRS. Once we sat down and did their cleanup, there was an issue that they did on their tax return. Once we cleaned all those things up, guess how much they owed? $6,000. And they actually received a refund for $6,000. So in fact, they didn't have to pay anything. Let me give you a second example. We had a client who came to us that owed about $90,000 to the IRS. They owed this amount of money because when they had done their own books, they were actually classifying their investments into the business as income. And so that meant they were being taxed on the money that they invested into the business. Now, you might be saying, well, why would someone do that? Number one, they didn't know that that's not how they were supposed to properly categorize things in the books. But more importantly, this happened because they didn't have the funds to actually run the business. They needed a lot of investment money. So it looked like they made about $300,000 in a given year. But in fact, they made far less. Once we saw that this was the case, because they were in audit, we fixed the books. We sent it to the auditor. The auditor said we had done such a great job on the books. They accepted everything that we sent in. And we proved that that our client, in fact, didn't owe this money. The client actually owed about $12,000. But here's the thing that is the big kicker. The client had already made multiple payments to pay down the debt of $90,000. Guess how much they had paid? $12,000. So what does that mean? They owe 12 and they already paid 12. So they actually didn't have to pay any more money. That's the power of the cleanup of phase 2. So in phase 3, we actually didn't have to do an installment agreement or anything like that because we found they didn't owe anything. That's not typical. That's not all cases. But we do have a lot that we're able to settle for a lower amount than they're actually owed. So if you're in a case like that, that's known as an offer in compromise. It basically is a settlement agreement with the IRS. We do settlements. We do installment payments, which are basically making monthly payments until the debt is satisfied. We look at your expiration date. Expiration date is basically what is the date in which the IRS is saying they can no longer collect from you. Whether you know it or not, they can only collect from you for a specific period of time. And depending on what you do and how you interact with them determines if that expiration date gets extended out longer. So we make sure we do all the things to not extend that expiration date if we don't have to, and we come up with a plan to pay some back. Sometimes in those cases, we pay a very small amount up until the expiration date, and then the rest of the debt expires and gets written off. We also put some clients into CNC status, which is not collectible. So until their debt expires, basically the IRS can't collect from them. But there are very specific things, no matter what you do with us, that you have to continue to do until this is off your plate and cleaned up completely. And that means for a minimum of 5 years, you are going to have to make sure every return you file on time. You're going to have to make sure every payment you make is paid on time. You can't even have 1 penny due beyond the due date. You got to make sure payroll is done on time, estimated payments, all of it. Because if you fall behind at any time and in any way, guess what? The IRS is going to come back and say, everything that we did, all of that work to get you a really small payment that you owe is thrown out. And now you owe the entire balance back, plus penalty and interest. So all of this means we have to work together to ensure we get you a great result, but then we maintain and keep that over time. These are our 3 phases. Phase 1 is like our discovery. Phase 2 is our cleanup. And phase 3 is we entered into some sort of agreement with the IRS. During this entire process, we are working with you. We want to make sure that we are a team. We need you like you need us. And so we need you to show up, be ready to hit the ground running. And when we need information from you, we need you to get it to us fast, because the IRS gives us very short time frames to get that information back to them. And missing just one important deadline could mean they stop working with us and just become way more difficult to give you the best possible solution that's available. So if you think you're ready, make sure that you have the time to devote. Make sure that you have the ability to get us the things that we need. Make sure that you're fully committed, because we are a team and we need you to get you the best results that are available. Well, that's all we have. I want to say thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. My team and I look forward to meeting you.